Do we have any questions or comments? Yes.
My name is Minu Friedl from Ceres in Germany. You mentioned the do-it-yourself community in this area. I think when it comes to agricultural applications, for instance, then the DIY community is really up to the task, perhaps already now. So how can we have a registry? Do you have any idea of how to involve those groups into the debate so that they become part of the process and that they develop an interest in submitting their ideas, submitting their results to such a registry, which I personally also find something that is necessary?
Problem with registries is always the outreach. How do you reach people? How do you get people to register what they are doing? This is right. So what helped a lot on the European Union level was that was to implement some kind of requirements that projects have to be registered in a whatever centrally or whatever managed registry to be, let's say, acceptable in the community or for research funding. This would be some very strong incentive to register things. There are also, of course, soft incentives in being, when you register a project, you generate some kind of, let's say, openness, transparency about what you are doing and open it up to critique and also maybe appreciation. So, yeah, and when you start with that and have a certain mass registered, then it's a self-driving thing. And other people also want to register their research there. But the start is always the most difficult part.
Okay, thank you. My name is Patrick Rulsheim from Belgium. Thank you, Andreas, for listing in a very concise way some of the issues that you found. And I think it's important to see kind of scope that you can have, realizing that, of course, it may be very specific for the case, and you have been mixing some which are relevant for gene drive, maybe some others which are relevant for very specific applications. I think that is probably one of the things to caution for. To say, like, if you list it like this, then of course it's the immediate question would be, look at all the problems with the environment, just like look at all the problems with ethics and with all the problems with health, whereas in fact they may be very specific. So I think one of the tasks for this group could actually be to, as you have this overview, to start to look for, is this really technology driven, or is it specific for certain applications? Is this specific for a gene drive? And maybe then to put that into perspective, because we're actually at this moment we're doing a study for the Dutch Advisory Committee, who actually has a very, very strong way to deal with the biosafety of gene drives. They wanted to study on looking at what experience do we have with gene drives. And interesting enough, all of the systems which have been tested in the past have been almost released without any review. So it's actually pretty difficult for us to find experiences because people just were using them. They were not like the gene drives that we have today, but clearly if we're looking at setting a framework, I think part of what this group should remind us of is, in fact, to say we're doing this within an environment where, indeed, are we going to continue to have a very difficult balancing act in terms of, yes, once it's done by gene editing, we are going to look in detail, or are we going to look at potential impact? So I think it's nice to have the overview. I think it then brings the caution to say let's proceed carefully and let's see how this fits within an overall framework.
I absolutely agree that the field needs specificity, and I might want to add that also needs a very close interaction with scientists who are doing that, and I think that's all.
Yeah. Yes, I want to follow up on the previous question regarding the registries. As a matter of fact, if we want to avoid more and more dissemination in the public, perhaps our role is to provide more information to the public. And my feeling is that there is very few experience of do-it-yourself with nuclear materials, for instance. Very few. I mean, beside terrorists or other groups like that. It's because the awareness is very well, has been very, all these issues, safety issues, ethical issues have been very well disseminated to the public. So perhaps one of major goal of ARRIGE should be that providing more and more information, accurate information to the public to avoid this do-it-yourself business.
Thank you. My name is Wellington. I'm from Nigeria. Looking at the issues that have been raised, especially the environmental concerns, it still takes heavy roots in ethics as well. And then if you're looking at registry and continent like Africa, for instance, where you have very weak regulatory structures, it becomes really difficult how some of these applications can be controlled. I mean, it was heartwarming to hear self-regulation, the scientists' self-regulation. In a place like Africa, how do you handle all of this? And I'm also happy again to note too that ARRIGE can form a strong advocacy system in this area, especially for continents in Asia and parts of Africa. Thank you.
I agree with you. Self-regulation in academic science is already difficult, but self-regulation in a commercial environment is even more difficult. And agriculture is part of a commercial environment.
Okay, last question, and just to remind you, please state your name and your organizations when you start speaking. Is there any last question? Oh, yeah.
Dirk Lanzerath, Network of Research Ethics Committees. I want to raise an environmental ethics question or comment. The day before yesterday, I read in the newspaper that the last white rhinoceros, a male white rhinoceros, died. And directly in this newspaper article, there was a reference to a researchers' team who want to clone or with artificial fertilization another male rhinoceros. So I wonder, when we talk about a technology like CRISPR-Cas9, how is it driven by specific goals like science fiction and Jurassic Park versions? And don't we have to be very careful to evaluate, on the one hand, the technology, the means, and on the other hand, the goals, and that we have a very careful assessment on how we introduce the one technology to various environments. Because very often that was already an issue in the old gene technology debate. We raised a lot of interesting goals like no hunger anymore in developing countries. And this is unrealistic at the end, because the causes of those developments are very diverse and very complicated and can probably not be solved with a technology, whether it's CRISPR-Cas9 or any other.
Thank you very much for these very interesting comments. And I think it's a good transition when we talk about Jurassic Park to move to the animal issues.